How are we doing, everybody? Happy Monday. I hope everyone had an amazing Monday and start to the week. All right, everybody, let me know if you can hear me. We got Wes and Z on speakerphone through the phone, and I'm shadowing it through the computer for the space. We are going to bring on Wes here first. I want to...
can't hear anything.
Just say, guys. You guys aren't going to be able to hear the show. I was on mute. Here we go. Z, will you please mute your computer or turn it off because I can hear me echoing in the background?
I have muted it.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys. We got Wes Christian here, lawyer for Quantum, on one of the largest lawsuits in history against market corruption. We've had Wes on before through different groups on space calls, and we obviously had big news today come through on the filing from Quantum moving forward with this lawsuit. I'm going to bring Wes on here. We're going to get to some questions with him and dig a little bit more into what we have going on. Wes, are you in the call?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Wes, you want to just explain really quick for the listeners who don't know you or have never listened to you, who you are, what you do, and then why you chose to have a niche in market corruption.
Sure. I'm a fourth generation Texan. I grew up on a ranch in Texas. Was a pre-vet major, couldn't get into vet school, went to law school by default, actually. Been practicing for 47 years. Our firm is a boutique litigation firm. We take on a lot of causes, especially ones that we think are systemic, whether that's Wall Street, which is my number one pet peeve, and I'll explain why in a minute. We've gone after Google, we've gone after Disney, we've gone after Lloyd's of London, we've gone after banks, etc. We also do a lot of pro bono work for other people, sometimes that need help. Again, it's about seeking justice. It's about, and that's justice for all. It's about making a difference, not just a living. When I was chair of the litigation section for the State Bar of Texas, we started a program called the Texas Legends Program, and that's really about honoring lawyers that have done something enormous. You know, people like lawyers like who took on, the NFL, lawyers that took on the Catholic Church, lawyers that took on desegregation, down the list. Well, Wall Street certainly fits into that category. I got into this space by virtue of my deceased friend, John O'Quinn, who was purportedly a billionaire lawyer. I know he was worth hundreds and hundreds of millions for sure in Texas. And he asked me to join him in that litigation and kind of head it up back in 2000. And as we investigated it, we believed then, and we still believe now, that from where we sit, it could be probably the largest commercial fraud in U.S. history. And it's not just limited to the sale of stock assets electronically that don't get delivered and how the market is being manipulated. It includes also other assets, credit default swaps, from where we sit and we believe, and the same for corporate bonds, etc. It's really about the system allowing everything to happen electronically, and many times the delivery of the asset that was purchased not following. And then overlaid over that is various market manipulation tools that are being used, whether it's naked short selling, whether it's spoofing, whether it's washed and matched trades, etc. So I do this. I could have retired many years ago. I do this because I cannot look the other way at this point on what I see. And frankly, we spent a lot of time, especially in the last 5 years, assembling a massive team of lawyers from very large firms in New York who teamed up with me, and people that many of those are national firms who teamed up with me to take this on because they too believe it's, an enormous fraud in our country. And of course, ultimately they believe we can make money at this, even though for the most part we do this on a contingency. So at the end of the day, we're all about trying to right this wrong and representing the companies that have been screwed, and exposing this fraud to the light, because you can't resolve something that's enormously wrong unless it's exposed to the light. And presently we have, 3 cases in New York working its way through the system. 2 others we're fixing to file. And to answer your last question, then I'll take other questions. We took the Quantum BioPharma case because I think it's an enormously large case. It's with a company that I think is outstanding. Its leadership is outstanding. The damage model, we believe, is enormously large. Probably in the top 5 damage models that we have. Although at the end of the day, it could be even larger or less, but most likely larger once we get discovery. So don't forget, we're just in the preliminary stages of this case, even though what we filed recently was in response to their motion to dismiss. And as you would imagine, we're pretty optimistic about the facts of the case, which are spelled out in a almost 100-page complaint. And then, of course, our reply that was just filed is probably a third to a half of that length. But you can discern a lot of the reason for which we think this is a great case by going to PACER, which is the federal recording system in the courts, and downloading the complaint or our reply, their motion to dismiss. You can look at a lot of that data is public because it's been filed with the court, and viewers or listeners in this case can make their own decision on what they see based on the details. As they say, the devil's in the details in those complaints and our reply brief that we just filed.
Phenomenal, Wes. I couldn't agree more with the systemic problem we have right now. I said it on one of my calls last week that, selling items that you don't actually have and taking people's money is probably the most profitable and highest revenue business in the country or the world. And then the call just dropped all of a sudden. So everybody stand by. Just a sec. Let me get him back on. Must have been Ken. Oh, perfect. I don't know how it combined the whole thing, so I just dropped. Alrighty. Right when I said that, isn't that weird?
What I was saying is that this is a worldwide problem. Go look at the fails to deliver in Euroclear, which is one of the European markets. There's multiple European markets similar to what exists in our world, the DTC, et cetera. And you're going to see that they have a systemic problem also, which is why South Korea is, outlawing this and is really taking action. Malaysia's taking action. You're going to see other countries take action because this is seriously threatening the integrity of our capital system, our capital markets. And there's an ongoing increase in awareness of this fraud, mainly helped by, Wall Street Bets and Superstock and MMTLP and Reddit and all those groups, but also, the lawsuits that have been continuing, as well as people privately investigating this, as well as some of the regulators investigating this. So if there was ever a time to be in this space to make headway, to advance it, it's now. Because we have massive teams legally, we have multiple cases. As I've articulated, there's millions and millions and millions of screwed investors that are now, consolidating their time and their research together that are coming against this. And so, it's a slow process, but it's better than just doing nothing. So that's kind of where we are.
Absolutely. I said it multiple times. I think the best thing that came out of the entire GameStop saga of all the brokerages colluding together to turn off the buy button is that now there's millions of people with unlimited information online trying to expose it every single day and looking for these bad actors doing bad things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, Wes. Well, next question. I want to know, how did you and Zeeshan end up meeting or getting together? Did he reach out to you? Did you reach out to him? How did this case start day one?
My recollection is, and he can correct me, but my recollection is he called me, basically a mutual friend of ours referred him to me. And then ultimately I spent a lot of time with Zeeshan, who is, the ultimate company man. It's all about the company. He doesn't really look at this at how any of this benefits him.
Absolutely.
He looks at doing the best for his company. And so that's number one. Number two, basically when we saw the massive amount of shares being sold that made no sense. When we first look at a case, Kevin, we look at, the key indicators. As the short sales go, the reported short sales go up, is the price going down? There's other indicators, kind of like an airplane. There's indicators of this is going on. And once we saw the magnitude of the indicators in the quantum case, we felt like, this would be a really good case. And then we did a lengthy, enormous due diligence like we do on all these cases, because they're incredibly expensive to prosecute. And once the due diligence came in, we even felt better. So the firm that I'm doing it with, which is some former Boyce Schiller partners, basically are very optimistic about this case.
Really? So after doing your guys' due diligence and you'd been already, prosecuting Wall Street on corruption, you and the team felt incredibly confident in what Zeeshan had brought to you and what you dug up yourself.
Again, in the interest of disclaimer, there's no guarantees in litigation, right?
No guarantees in advising either.
Yeah, well, that's right. So at the end of the day, you look at the magnitude of what's happened.
Sure.
And it's large. It's very large. So if you compare issued and outstanding shares, pre-reverse split, and the same thing post-reverse split, to what's being sold in the market, it's outrageous. So the question then becomes, who's doing it? And the question then becomes, are they spoofing? Are they making short selling? What are they doing? And what we were able to really nail to the floor is the spoofing aspect of it. So ultimately, yes, believe me, when we say we're going to take a case and do it essentially on a contingency, it certainly has to meet a pretty high standard, because, we have families to raise, and in my case, grandchildren to be, to help raise, and et cetera, and our 5 kids, and on and on. So we're not going to waste our time on a case that doesn't move the needle. And move the needle means expose this and ultimately be successful.
Sure.
Because in order to cause change, you have to have a consequence for these people. And the consequence is the money they're going to have to pay ultimately to deal with this, and exposing it to where ultimately maybe even the Justice Department comes in and does something, prosecutes them in some other way. So that's our thought process as to why we think we're excited about it.
Amazing. Can you explain to the listeners, Wes, just really quickly, contingency and why that would make people believe you're more confident? Just really quick on what that means.
Yeah, so basically, we have a group that's covering the cost of this, our cost of doing this. So we make nothing in our pocket in this litigation other than covering our costs unless we succeed. And so succeed means you ultimately make one or more defendants pay. You ultimately are prepared to take the case to trial, which includes an enormous amount of work with experts and everything else. And then you move forward. And if you understand how bad these facts are, in my view, for the defendants, none of these cases will ever go to trial. None has ever gone to trial. The closest one getting close to trial is the Harrington case, which is our case, along with Alan Pollack of Warshaw Bernstein and his partners. And so at the end of the day, they're doing most of the work on that. I'm co-counsel, but they're doing most of the heavy lifting. Because at this point, I'm managing what will ultimately be 5 cases in federal court in New York, which is a Herculean task to oversee that many cases. So much of the day-to-day, as we expanded this dream team, if you will, I'm doing less and less of the courtroom work and the day-to-day work. So I'm quarterbacking it and supervising it, but less and less. So that's how contingency works. So I don't get to make any profit or any money other than covering my costs unless we hit pay dirt. It's that simple.
Phenomenal. You got pretty much no skin in the game unless you're confident and you're doing all this work with no guarantee, which means that you truly believe what you're working on, is how I'd put it.
Perfect. Exactly. And I would say it different. I would say I do have skin in the game, not no skin in the game. I think I do have skin in the game.
True.
I have a lot of skin in the game. And the other partners that are in it with me, they have a lot of skin in the game too.
Oh yeah. Really quick, as well for the viewers, Wes, will you go over what spoofing is, just really quick, to let the viewers know? Because most people know what failure to delivers are and getting sold assets that don't even exist, but they take your money. But what is spoofing?
Yeah, so let's start with a primer on this cause of action. So 10b-5 is a statute that allows you to bring securities claims, and in doing so, it's either a fraud claim or it's a market manipulation claim. In our case, it's a market manipulation claim. And market manipulation means that you're disseminating false information into the marketplace. And when people see it, they rely on it, and based on seeing that information, they take certain actions. And ultimately, it's called reliance on that. So they rely on it, and ultimately, the company in this case is damaged by it. Why? Because the company has sold a bunch of its shares, tens of millions and hundreds of millions of its shares, over time at an artificially depressed price associated with the spoofing. So what is spoofing? Spoofing principally is committed by market makers. Market makers are people like Virtue, Citadel, Canaccord, etc. And they're there to make a market. The question is, are they bona fide market makers or are they shorting funds? Well, that will be determined ultimately in discovery and in the case itself. We say, at least the cases we're filing, that they aren't bona fide market makers. Well, that's important because under Reg Show, the market maker is the only one, a bona fide market maker is the only one who can short a stock without locating the stock to borrow. And the theory behind that is they're supposed to, their sell side every day should match their buy side more or less because they're there to make a market in the stock, essentially create activity upon which investments and investors will participate in. So at the end of the day, spoofing means that that market maker is doing something illegal. And what's illegal? They post either up or down. In this case, let's talk about sell orders. So they post a large number of sell orders, one after another, boom, 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 down the list. And ultimately, when you look at that on a screen, and you see that many shares being sold, it would cause you concern as an investor. Like, what the heck is going on with Quantum? Why are there so many sell orders? And ultimately, the reaction, generally speaking, of that is the price goes down. Why? Because people have jumped on board and said, I'm going to sell too. The person who's posting all these sell orders must know something I don't, so therefore I'm going to join the party. Well, it's simple economics. If sales exceed buys, what happens? The price falls.
Yep.
The price falls. So ultimately, what spoofing is posting all those orders, but they're really fake. What that means is they don't ever get executed on they get withdrawn. So imagine that you did that every single day, but ultimately you didn't consummate any of those orders. They simply were displayed as if they were real and they were going to be consummated. So that is what we call the dissemination of false information. No different than all these shares that are sold on a day that can't keep up with demand. When purchasing shares can't keep up with the number of shares sold, the price is going to fall. In that case, the seller is disseminating false information into the marketplace by saying, yes, all these shares we're selling is real. They're real. Even though the company only sells 1 million shares a day normally, if you sell 3 million shares that day, I guarantee you the price is going to go down because the market can only absorb more or less 1 million shares a day because that's its normal output. It's normal, supply and demand curve on a given day. You exceed that by having sales being larger than buys, the price is going to go down. The same thing with spoofing. So, does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense to me, and hopefully to the viewers as well.
Hello?
Sorry, I had John mute on my side so we didn't get any echo. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, and I'm guessing the viewers as well. I would also add on to there that the bona fide market makers also get to choose buys and sells that go to lit market versus dark pools to control it now wherever they want. They don't even have to just do, synthetic shorting to make a market for all these buys coming through, but they can route those orders on all the buys to behind the scenes and all the sells to the lit markets out there, which can, exaggerate the effect that they're trying to cause as well.
Yeah, what you're going to find is the percentage of trades in dark pools is increasing. The percentage of trades in X clearing, which means it doesn't go through the DTC, it goes broker to broker. Imagine that the brokers, and this is my characterization, have a different set of books. They got what goes through the Depository Trust Corporation, which in theory is the clearing agency for all the United States securities. But instead of that, it goes broker to broker, which means they have a different set of books. And ultimately, that, from where I sit, is on the increase. So dark pools are on the increase, X clearing is on the increase, and also trading off exchanges on the increase. What that means is, in the old days, you would only trade on the exchange that you're on. But now what's happened is that no longer is the case. So you even have situations where the percentage of shares that trade on the exchange that the company is actually registered on, like NASDAQ, is so small it's ridiculous. In some cases, it's only 5 or 10%, and the rest of it's going through dark pools, ex-clearing, other off exchanges. So it's a big problem, and of course, this is my suspicion. It's done this way to make it harder to track, because, like you say, they can route these shares through multiple brokers, not just one. And so you have to know how to do all this, which, of course, we have teams of people that know how to do this. And it's very complicated, especially when you go to, when you come from Canada, or you come from London, or you come from somewhere else. It makes it very complex.
I can only imagine. I'd also like to throw on for the listeners as well that not only do all these loopholes exist, but the largest market makers in the US also get to have the largest options market makers in the US, where they pinky promise they don't share information, which they can synthetically short an ungodly amount because everyone buys calls on a stock. And that's why we see Max Payne turn out so many times every single week for different stocks, or you'll see a stock or a company blow earnings out of the water and it drops 10%, or blow earnings and go up 10%. Why? Because Max Payne wasn't there on the highest volatility of the quarter, most likely on an earnings report that they get to accomplish. It's just ridiculous that they get to have both those sides. I think it's the biggest conflict of interest in financial history ever, that they can do both of those things, make a market for options and make a market for stock. Route orders where they want, see the options real time.
Our lawsuits aren't really about that, but you're right. But that, there's so many other things that are wrong. Like, for example, most investors know when they sign their account agreement with their broker and they're going to do, buy some shares, and then ultimately, if they like it, buy some more on margin. And once you sign that margin agreement, you give them the right to lend your shares.
Yep.
And they get to keep all the income from lending your shares. But when they loan your shares, they're only going to a short seller who, incidentally, is diametrically opposed to the reason for which you bought the stock.
Exactly.
So that's in the agreement. So our lawsuit's not about that, but that ought to be an unenforceable agreement against public policy. But nobody's taken that on, and I don't have any more time to devote to this. We're not going to take it on, but it's another enormous wrong that they figured out a way to contract around. And in theory, the investor's informed, but if you literally look at the account agreements, which I have, it's really in the fine print,
Oh yeah, it's on page 700 of the I agree that everyone just clicks on when they open an account. Just buried so incredibly deep. And when I found that on my clients' margin accounts, and because we had to have margin to do options for clients, and I told them all what was going on, and they requested to open up separate accounts to move their shares that they didn't want, went out to a non-margin account, whether it was IRA or not. They just opened up, a non-margin Roth IRA and moved all of their quantum shares over that one to decrease the lendable amount through their broker, so that the only way their broker is going to be doing it now is illegally if it's a cash account.
Well, but Kevin, they do that all the time. It's a violation of Rule 15C33. It's called the Customer Protection Rule when you put it in a cash account. But they lend those out to, I'm not saying all of them, but I can tell you frequently, I can't name the case because it's confidential, but I can tell you frequently we see in Discovery the lending out of cash account shares also. So anyway, it's hard to come up with, because what you have to understand is marking, shares long when they're marking them long when they were short. etc. So
billions
and
of
I forget
trades.
the hundreds of millions this year. Maybe it was billions.
It was billions of
It was
trades.
very large. And what they got fined, like what, 10 or 15 million?
Yeah, I did the post on it. It was like 1/1,000,000th of a penny per trade they got fined for being wrong, like breaking the law. Like it was, they got fined for breaking the law.
Yeah, there's so much there. Frankly, you have to pick your battles. You know, it's kind of like the lawyers that took on the Catholic Church. You know, there's many things that need addressed there. But you know, they wanted to focus on priests raping boys, or the NFL wanted to focus on. I mean, the people fighting the NFL want to focus on, you know, the concussions, ultimately causing mental illness with their players. I mean, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to pick your battle, and it's kind of like your marriage. You know, you got to pick your battle. Otherwise, you'll lose, because you can't fight every battle. You know.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping, you know, your team that you've been working with and are working with is going to, you know, branch off into another 5 that want that same goal as you.
Yeah, well, who knows? The team can always grow. I'm very happy with the team we have now. It's 5 firms, I think, in this. So, and that doesn't count, you know, the other. There's a couple other suits being brought by other law firms. It's not part of our consortium. I call it consortium. It's basically a large group of law firms working together, you know, for one cause. I call it a legal consortium. So anyway.
Good. That's music to my ears right now. I'd love to, you know, see more of it. It's a tough battle. It's a dangerous battle. You know, we see on the news every day billionaires getting away with things, or whistleblowers committing suicide randomly when they weren't like that. And so it's going against the Catholic Church too. That had been absolutely terrifying for the people that did it. But I think we're on the right path with, you know, it started out a lot of retail versus Wall Street as a whole, and the market makers, and like you brought up, Wall Street Bets and Supersonic and these pages and millions of people bringing it up. But you know, the complaints and the emails to SEC and stuff just fell on dead ears. And so bringing in lawyers and CEOs of companies that are having this can't be ignored. And I love the fact of, you know, just bringing both Quantum and Genius Group not being U.S. companies. So we're bringing in government into this. And I've said for 3 years on my space call that either the U.S. fixes the system or another country is going to call it out on what's going on.
Yeah. Well, it's not a Republican or Democrat thing, you know. It's
exactly.
On both sides of the aisle. And honestly, if you think about, you know, what groups control a lot of our capital markets, and for that matter, control our economy, it's the same people. Not totally the same, but, you know, think of who's been the head of the Fed, or think who's been the head of monetary policy. I mean, it's, you know, Goldman Sachs people. It's, you know, J.P. Morgan people. It's, you know, those people. Well, heck, that's the same people we're suing, who incidentally are the same people that own the DTC. So it is a fox in the henhouse situation.
Yep. I always tell people that I think the one on TV, like, you know, just for example, Jerome Powell, if you're on TV and you're in the media's eyes, you're not the one pulling the strings. Think of every, you know, big corruption movie ever. The people pulling the strings are almost never seen.
That's right. That's right. I agree with that. Generally speaking. There's exceptions to everything.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Wes, let's dig into the case just a little bit. I know your time's precious, but I just want to inform everyone listening, if they're new to Quantum, new to this case, can we do just a quick 5-minute-ish brief on what's been done so far. So nothing in the works, obviously, or no material non-public information, but what's happened so far in the case besides Ken Griffin just ending my phone call every single day. Just a sec, everyone.
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. All
On
right.
my cell phone, it doesn't have the greatest reception, but okay, we can go with it.
We're back.
I have about 15 more minutes before I have to get off. So okay.
Perfect. Sorry about that drop on the cell phones because we're talking about the highest powers. So the last question, Wes, is just what's happened in the case so far with Quantum? What's been filed? What steps are we on right now? I don't know. Let's say there's 10 steps to.
Yeah, I think where I ended up, where I think everybody heard the series of events up to when I said all the papers have been filed. They filed a motion to dismiss. We filed a response. They have a chance to reply to that, and then ultimately the court may ask for oral hearing. They may not. It's up to the court, and then that's going to probably be sometime in the fall. And then ultimately, it takes the court, understandably, a time to rule. And this is a very serious matter. So that probably is going to go till the very end of this year, or maybe even into the first quarter of next year. And at that time, we'll get a decision that the case is dismissed or not. Obviously, we think it should not be dismissed.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then we'll enter into a scheduling order with the court, and then ultimately begin pursuing discovery in the case, which means depositions, document production, etc.
Got it. So the case
that would be both with parties, that would include parties, which are CIBC World Markets and RBC Dominion Securities, but it would also include non-parties. Okay.
Perfect. So case has been filed, but documentation hasn't gone yet until the next response on so it'd be the counter from.
Yeah. So all I was saying is ultimately we can't send out discovery until we beat the motion to dismiss. That's pursuant to the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act, referred to by acronym as the PSLRA. And so at the end of the day, there won't be any discovery until we beat the motion to dismiss, and most likely that's going to happen, starting first quarter of next year.
Perfect.
So that's the chronology, at least for the next 6 months or so.
Okay. Amazing. And what was filed today? Was that done by you? Well, obviously the filing was
today. It was filed last week.
Last week.
Yeah, I think last Thursday. What was filed was our reply to their motion to dismiss. So they told the court, it needs to be dismissed, and here's all the reasons why. And we filed a reply to that said, no, any of the things they said aren't correct. And then ultimately, we pointed the court to some evidence that we have that shows this, this, and this. And because of that, we say the complaint should not be dismissed. And then they get the chance to reply to that. And then ultimately the court sets a hearing if they want one. If not, they rule on the papers, and it's up or down. The case goes forward or it gets dismissed. And ultimately, that decision should come out again end of the year or first quarter of next year. And again, this is all a guess.
Sure.
Because the court, goes at its own pace and its own time.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see even what could possibly be dismissed with the evidence that's out there, or that's even an option. So I can't wait for, the next steps. We've had, you brought up in the beginning of the call, multiple cases you've had with Wall Street, and we've had hundreds of bad actors and trolls on X saying that you've never won a case for a company. Have you ever went to arbitration?
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Love it.
I mean, look. When we initially filed some cases, like the ASCII case and other cases, we didn't know what we, know now, or it took us several years to find out how to do these things.
Sure.
And ultimately, we settled essentially. I think in the last 15 years, I have a list of these. I don't have it memorized. I think in the last 15 years, we've settled every case in our favor, except for half of one case. So now occasionally we might dismiss a defendant for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, we've settled virtually all the cases in the last 15 years, except for half of one case. We got hit on a procedural issue. Part of the case went to Utah. Part of the case stayed in Georgia. Sometimes we don't settle it for what we want. To be honest, it's never what we want. You have to compromise, but we've gotten some sizable settlements on several cases. Very sizable. I can't speak specifics because it's confidential. But at the end of the day, that's just an absolute categorical lie for people to say that.
Love it. That's what I wanted, everyone to hear, because, there's unlimited information out there nowadays, and it's extremely hard to know what's true and what's false on the internet, on the news, on the government's job reports. Everything. And so I'm glad, you could just clear that up. I wanted to just ask that because there's one of the things I've seen so many bad actors putting out there that, a lot of investors in companies you represent have probably been thinking about as well. Like, wait, is this true? And if they don't know the research or they don't want to do the research to find out if it's true, they just go on what they think. So I'm glad you could clear that up for us as well, Wes.
Yeah.
So as far as Quantum goes right now, we filed the reply last week. Now we're just in the waiting game, right? In case people want to ask, like, when's this come out? When's this come out? We're waiting for that response from the court, correct? Or they're waiting on a response from the defendants?
They're waiting on a response from the defendants to our response.
Got it.
And then ultimately the court will decide what happens.
Got it. Perfect. I'm trying to think of another one I have for you. I'm going to actually open it up. We're going to take one or two questions from someone that I know in the space for Wes here before he has to go. If there are no questions, then in the meantime, I will just throw out there to everyone listening that Wes, Zeeshan, and I have strongly appreciated every single screenshot, phone call, computer trading desk that you guys have sent in on things not going through for your stock purchases, sells, DRSs, anything like that. It hasn't fallen on deaf ears. We have appreciated everything that retail investors have brought to the table during this case, during the last couple of months, year. We've had tons of problems from, the US not even allowing direct registration in Quantum for a few weeks until my call to Fidelity, and it was just absurd that they weren't allowing it when it was completely allowed. And those screenshots did matter. Every time your broker is making you call in to do a purchase, that matters, because this is all just, there's no such thing, I would guess, Wes, as too much evidence or too much information on something. Obviously, there can be too much to go through when having a case, but as far as being sent too much information, I would guess that can be done.
Well, look, it's always better to have more than less. You can always call out what you don't want if it's more. If it's less, then you may find yourself at a disadvantage because you didn't have the rest. So my advice is always to do more than less, and then let the experts. A lot of times when I'm sent, I can't figure it out myself, but I send it to the experts, and they say, "Oh no, here's what's going on." I'm like, "Okay." So does that help us or hurt us? Well, that doesn't help us, so we throw it away. But it's always better to send what you have that you think is wrong or actionable, whatever you want to call it. So, but I encourage you guys to keep doing that in whatever fashion.
Perfect. I hope everyone heard that. Just keep sending things you see. Everyone that's been watching screens since January of 2021 with GameStop and seeing everything go down there that is sending this information, it's gonna be seen, it's gonna be deciphered, and it's definitely appreciated. I'm just gonna bring up one question here from BK really quick, Wes, and then we'll end the incredible call.
Okay.
Let's see if it added him. It might not because I've been on the space for so long. Let's see. Yep, looks like it's glitching. BK, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, absolutely. What question do you have for Wes today?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for everything. I know it's not easy. Real question, not about quantum, going to be about Genius. We all see a bunch of emails going around. Just kind of want to know if they're real, because emails are definitely very easy to be faked or
Sure.
remade. Just kind of wanted a quick answer. Just kind of if they're actually real going around, or are people just trying to like spoof and that all ordeal.
Okay. Well, first, our group represents Genius. We're working vigorously on this, and I think you're going to see a filing soon. I know it keeps taking longer and longer and longer, but it's because it's so frigging complex. Because the reverse splits and the additional things that the bad guys are doing that we have to capture in order to have the case, the lawsuit have a better chance at surviving. And so I can tell you we're close to the end of the road on that. I don't want to give timetables because the timetables I've already given haven't happened. But to some extent, I'm relying on other people giving me information. I say me, our group. There's 3 law firms in that case. There's the Kasowitz Torres firm, which is huge in New York. There's the Snyder Wallace firm, which is a national firm, and my firm. And so all 3 firms are working their butts off on this. But to some extent, we're counting on what the experts give us. And so until I get the final stuff there, which I'm supposed to have a month ago, and then 3 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks ago, and 1 week ago, but I'm told it's coming soon. And I scream at them every day, and they're hard workers and they're good people, but I can only do so much with what I have. So I'm hopeful that it gets filed this month. Okay. But again, I'm relying on others to help me get the job done. But it is definitely going to be done as fast as we can, but we're not going to sacrifice the quality of it because we're going to take another week or 2 or 3. So, but I'm hopeful, as I said last month, I was hopeful I would file it in July. I'm hopeful it'll be done in August here. Okay.
Perfect. BK, can you say what the email said?
Kevin, before
yeah, 1 sec. I took a screenshot.
Wes goes, I would like to say some words for Wes because he's very humble. So I've gone to know Wes, and he's an incredible human being. He's a humanitarian. He's not doing this just for money. He is fighting for the cause. And if I can thank the banks for one thing. It would be for this. Because of their action, I've come to know people like Wes, yourself, and so many other lovely souls on Twitter because the banks did this to us and have the honor to become Wes's friend and your friend. So, yeah, I would like to say that. He's a great guy, and I'm honored to be Wes's friend. Well, as I feel the same about you, Zeeshan, that is a benefit, when you're in the ditch and you're outnumbered, 10-1, you can figure out real quick who you can count on. So, as we say in Texas, even though Zeeshan is not a Texan, I'm officially saying he has cantaloupe balls also. So that's what we say in Texas when you stand on the rock and you don't get off and you're brave and you get death threats and all kinds of threats and this and that, whatever, and they come after you every way known to mankind, whether it's writing some crap article in Forbes or whatever. So at the end of the day, when you get this much resistance, I'll tell you one quick story for the viewers because it's a good example of where we are. And I say we, everybody on this call, where we are. When I was chairman of the litigation section of the State Bar of Texas, I was able to start a program, which I started. Go look it up, the Texas Legends program. You can go to the State Bar Texas website and go to the Legends icon, and you can see all the incredible lawyers that we personally have inducted along with my colleagues who were incredible. Well, one of them was a gentleman named Judge Louis Bedford. He was an African-American guy who in the 40s couldn't even go to any school in Texas except one, which was the only school in Texas for college, for African-Americans. So he went there because he had no other choice because Texas was bigoted back then. This is before the Sweat versus Painter case, which overruled all that crap. So anyway, then he wanted to go to law school. No law school would take him except Brooklyn College. Why? Because they were Jews that understood something about discrimination, okay? And so at the end of the day, he graduates there. He comes back to Dallas, Texas. And as a lawyer, he has to work in a feed store carrying feed sacks because no one would hire him because he was black. Okay? So then one day, Justice Marshall calls him, although he's a lawyer at that time, heading up the NAACP, and says, do you want to help me desegregate the Dallas Independent School District? And so Louis Bedford tells Thurgood Marshall, well, sure, I'd love to do that. Let's team up. So when I interviewed him before we inducted him as a Texas legend because he had cantaloupe balls to do what he did back then, knowing it was right, not wrong, I asked him, did they ever do anything to try to harm you? He said, hell yes, they did. I said, what did they do? He said, Wes, they set my house on fire and they tried to kill me. I said, what did you do, Judge Bedford? I forgot to tell you, he was the first African-American judge in Dallas County. So I said, what did you do, Judge Bedford? He said, I called Thurgood. I said, what did Thurgood tell you? He said, Louis, if they're trying to kill you and burn your house down, you must be doing a bunch of damn good down there. So just keep it up, okay?
Hell yeah.
The point of that story, ladies and gentlemen, is no different than when we took this nation, from the British. And incidentally, there were over 20-something lawyers that signed the Declaration of Independence. They burned their farms. They killed some of them. They destroyed them financially. All kinds of things. Brave men, all men back then, although there's been plenty of brave women, too, I might add, along this journey. So anyway, we've inducted many women as Texas Legal Legends, just for the record. The point to all this is you never give up. You go forward. You try to right wrongs. And I'm going to tell you, God has a way of honoring that. People have a way of honoring that. And so ultimately, that's all you can do. You can take whatever talents you have and do something good with it, and do bad. I choose good over bad. That's simple. That's how I was raised. That's what I stand for. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. Doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. Don't mean we don't lose some things along the way. We do. But at the end of the day, we're going to try to do what's right. We're going to try to do it the best we can. It's that simple. That's beautiful. Yes. So,
Love it.
if the representatives of bankers are listening, we would like to express gratitude for getting us together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I got to run. Thank you, Wes. Okay. All right, bye-bye.
Perfect.
So,
Wes, Z.
that was good, Kevin. I'm very grateful. And so many good people like you, and so many lovely souls on Twitter, and people have come out to join us, help us. It's just beautiful. It's divine. And, I would like to just thank everybody and yourself also
Appreciate
for what
it,
you're
Z.
doing, and
Hey,
thank you.
we love what you're doing, and that you had the giant cantaloupes to go after Wall Street. There's not a lot of CEOs that have done that, and it's incredible. I if you want to tell the story again, I thought it was absolutely amazing when you told me privately, Z. But for all the listeners, will you tell them how you got started after moving to North America? Because your story was just incredible from what you came from to CEO.
I will let's do that on the other call. Let's after we do our earnings, file our earnings, which we're trying to this week, because I have to take my daughter standing in front of me. Of course, that story will take some time. I would love to tell the listeners, but amazing call. Thank you so much, and once again, thank you everybody. You've been amazing through all this. I found so many lovely people. Cannot be grateful enough. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Z. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Awesome show, guys. Awesome show. To all the trolls out there, Wes has won almost every single case, not zero, like they have said. Most cases, though, with these corrupt parties, do go to behind doors arbitration. It's just how they work. So, there's not a lot of things that people can research, even with Grok or ChatGPT, on winnings, because everything, almost everything, ends up being private when people settle. So I'm glad that we could have Wes on here to verbally confirm that he's won almost every single case. That's massive. The fact that he took on Quantum's case against Wall Street for no guaranteed money or retainer. Actually, I don't know if the retainer parts, right? That might have to do with, they might have had a retainer just for firm costs. The filings cost money, traveling to New York to present cost money. But them taking on this case for only if they win on contingency is pretty incredible. I'm sure a lot of you could hear how big Wes's workload is now. So to take on another like Quantum recently, he must have saw something in it, and he probably saw the same exact things that I saw. And when I first talked to Zeeshan and I did my due diligence into the company and the shares sold that Wes was talking about, I'm looking at it like it's just like complete clockwork of every obliterated naked shorted company. 70 million shares traded here, 120 million shares traded on this day. What's the float? Less than 3 million of Quantum at that time. What's the average daily volume? 100,000. It's just absolutely impossible to have that. So I'm so stoked that Wes got to see this info. He's bringing it to the table. There's multiple CEOs. Now I know there's multiple law firms going after Wall Street for this shit. And I seriously think the movement has taken a positive turn after 40 years of nothing being done but promises from SEC on transparency and CAT systems and any other bullshit they have, to giant law firms and CEOs of these companies calling out Wall Street instead of all of us in retail just sending in emails like, you shouldn't do this, where they just have gotten ignored for 4 years. They're not going to be able to ignore CEOs, billionaires possibly coming or were billionaires before the corruption started. So it's an amazing turn. Like I said earlier, Wes, myself, Z, Roger at Genius, we have appreciated every single thing you guys have caught on your apps, on Robinhood, for some reason that you're still on there. Fidelity, multiple times, catching these glitches, screenshots, abnormalities that you've been sending have been amazing. And I love that there's this many people looking out for their own investments nowadays, when 5 years ago, most people below 40 didn't even have an investment. If they did, it was some target date fund in the 401k they got put into. So now everyone's learning more about this. They're trying to protect their assets. They are choosing where they want them to be, whether they're in all in their brokerage account, all in their brokerage account with margin, separating them like some of my clients have done to put the shares they don't want lent out because they didn't know on page 700 of the disclosure that if they have a margin account because they wanted to do options, that they were going to have their shares lent out. So what do? They open up a non-margin account that matches exactly the same account, and they just transfer their shares to that account into a cash account. Like Wes said, they could still eventually, if they needed to, break the rules like they've done for decades at brokerages. They will still lend them out, but these brokerages are competitors. So, when my clients' 60,000 shares of Quantum haven't showed up from Fidelity in 50 days, that's probably because they can't find 50,000 real shares or 60,000 real shares. And I think Interactive Brokers, who I use for majority of my clients' assets, are requiring that real shares are coming in that they can find. So, they don't want to be on the hook. All these brokerages don't want to be on the hook. Whoever's, to the last share is going to get screwed in this. And I'll just say this last thing before ending the call on, the DRS movement that started in Quantum. Yes, there is a potential for $100+ dividend from the lawsuits that has been filed and guaranteed. There hasn't been an amount guaranteed. Just with the lawsuit, we don't know, what it settles for. But, and I have lots of client shares in IRA accounts that I have not been able to figure out loopholes with to get those direct registered. But you are banking on your broker being legit and paying you that dividend if they're not DRS'd. Because whatever that dollar amount is, the first company or the first hands that $300 million check goes into is the transfer agents to distribute to all the DRS holders. And then they send the rest that's left over, if there is any, to Seed & Co. to try and figure out how to distribute however many fake shares are out there, which means whoever naked shorted them is going to be on the hook for that quote, $100 dividend. So that is you taking your broker, whoever you're with, you're banking on them to pay you. We've seen how many times where they've done something wrong, including GameStop in 2021. What are you going to be able to do about it if they say sorry? Like, has anything ever happened from retail, like just getting told sorry, you got screwed? Nothing. So I just want to get, that point across. I do not know which broker's best. I did my due diligence in choosing Interactive Brokers for my clients and SEI investments. Number one, on splitting assets, but number two, I took on Interactive Brokers after SEI because SEI doesn't allow options, margin, lending. That's one of the main reasons I went with them after Charles Schwab wanted to lend out all my clients' GameStop shares. So you have to do your own due diligence, look at the companies that have done these bad things, have turned off the buy buttons, have had these glitches when Roaring Kitty came back, and you're gonna have to make a decision if you're not going to DRS, who you are banking on to pay you. Okay, so that you don't get a "we're sorry," and that's the end. Like I said, what are you going to be able to do about it? I don't have an answer for that. I have no idea. Like, you're probably not going to be able to hire Wes to get your dividend payment. Class action, we see those get paid out for like $3 per person compared to what actually was done wrong. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone to think about that hasn't seen my posts on there. And if they have them in IRAs, that you should do your due diligence on these brokers to see who you are going to bank on to give you that payment if you don't DRS those shares. Because that transfer agent will get the check to pay out everyone that's listed there. And then whatever's left over goes to Seed & Co., which gets split out from the DTCC to all the brokers out there that people have that number that's electronic on their phone or their computer to see what is going to be paid out or not. There might be 1 million shares left out there that are real and 10 million in people's accounts. So 9 million of those brokers are going to have to pay that check to. And if Quantum's transfer agent has the DRIP program set up, direct reinvestment program on that dividend, then that money is going to have to be found for real shares to reinvest it that are in the market that same day. So there is your little nugget of holy shat to think about tonight, because that drip program is being worked on getting set up right now. All right, everybody. Amazing show. I appreciate everyone listening today. If you have any questions, as always, don't DM me because I'll never see it. Sorry. There's too many notifications per day. Write it on a sticky note or something, bring it up in my next AMA. I think I'm doing either another 2 or 3 space calls this week. We got Quantum's earnings coming out Wednesday after hours. That's going to be huge. We'll do a space call that day. And then I don't know if tomorrow I am. We will announce it, or I will announce it mid-morning if we are. But I hope to see everyone at least on the earnings call after market on Wednesday. Thanks for everyone being here. As always, nothing on my show is financial advice. It's only opinions. It's personal to whoever was talking. We do not give financial advice to the public. I am a fiduciary, but I am not your fiduciary unless you have a signed contract with me. So appreciate that, everybody. We'll see you soon.